Wouldn't it be nice to have several thought leaders in your industry know and love your brand? Start a podcast. Invite your industry's thought leaders to be guests on your show and start reaping the benefits of having a network full of industry influencers. Learn more at sweetfishmedia.com.
You're listening to B2B Growth, a daily podcast for B2B leaders. We've interviewed names you've probably heard before, like Gary Vaynerchuk and Simon Sinek, but you've probably never heard from the majority of our guests. That's because the bulk of our interviews aren't with professional speakers and authors. Most of our guests are in the trenches leading sales and marketing teams. They're implementing strategy. They're experimenting with tactics. They're building the fastest growing B2B companies in the world. My name is James Carberry. I'm the founder of Sweetfish Media, a podcast agency for B2B brands, and I'm also one of the co-hosts of this show. When we're not interviewing sales and marketing leaders, you'll hear stories from behind the scenes of our own business. We'll share the ups and downs of our journey as we attempt to take over the world. Just kidding. Well, maybe. Let's get into the show.
Welcome back to the B2B Growth Show. I'm your host for today's episode, Sean Blackburn with Sweetfish Media. I'm joined today by Amanda Riva. She is the CEO over at THP. Amanda, how are you doing today?
I am great, Sean. Thanks so much for having us on today.
Absolutely. We're excited for you to be here. And, the topic today that we're going to be talking about is, I think, a unique one and one that I'm excited about. We're talking the challenge of creating content at scale while still maintaining local and regional relevance. But before we jump into that, please tell our listeners a little bit about your background and what it is that you guys at THP are up to these days.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, my background, I always like to say I'm a salesperson first and a foodie second, and then a CEO third. So, our journey's been a really exciting one. We've been a company now for about 6 years. Started as a team of two, working out of a condo, really just trying to figure out how to offer marketers a scalable, transparent, and cost-effective way to produce content for the growing demand on social media. And in the last few years, we've evolved so much as a business, grown to a team of over 80 with offices in Toronto, New York, and London, servicing just over 720 top-tier enterprise-level CPG businesses, both across the B2C and the B2B sector. And, one of the big things for us that's been very exciting on our journey is, really trying to tap into this exciting evolution that's happening within the marketing industry right now. And it was really through doing that we had one of our very exciting announcements as a business that we were acquired by one of the top 10 largest marketing service providers in the world, Williams Lee Tag, back in October of 2018, which was a really exciting step for our business.
It's fantastic. And so you guys are kind of in this new world here. What's been one of the cool things that you've seen since that acquisition for you guys?
I think that the most exciting things for us, I'll say the two most exciting things. One has been, finding a partner that really embraced our business for its uniqueness and our passion for delivering content at scale and being cost effective while still working with, Fortune 500 companies. And that passion that we have is one they're not only supporting, but they're working very closely with us to figure out how to deliver that on a global scale, where today we're very focused in the North American and European markets. So we're incredibly excited about that. And I'd say part two is from a culture perspective. When you meet an 11,000 person company as an 80 person company, and you realize you share a lot of the same passions and drive and customer centric thinking, and you both embrace beer carts on Thursday afternoons, there's a lot of fun synergies that happen there. So that's been very exciting for our team.
That's awesome. And today we're going to be talking about some of the challenges between that balance of local relevance and also global relevance. It's something that is a newer challenge within the last few years, or even, I guess you could even say decades. But, what are some of those common challenges that you feel like marketers are facing as they're creating content now from a global, regional, local standpoint?
Absolutely. The biggest challenge is transparency. Today in the marketing industry, where we really see a dichotomy between company to company is that some of them prioritize global objectives first, whereas others are trying to embrace this level of micro personalization at a local marketing level. And they prioritize the initiatives of a local market first. In either of those options, the challenge is how do you produce things at scale? How do you create transparency and visibility market to market of what's working well and can be adapted or for that particular culture, whether you're taking content from Canada and repurposing it from India and France, or from Latin America to the APAC region, how do you work with someone who can help bring visibility and creativity and tactics to that type of thinking? So where we see a really strong shift in evolution in the market is exactly that. It's how do you bring transparency to what's going to resonate locally, which has never been more important than with the evolution of social media and technology in terms of how we share and interact with content that marketing companies and brands are putting out into the world. But then how do we also make sure that what's being done at a local level is being controlled from a quality and cost perspective, and that the global procurement and marketing teams have visibility and a sense of what's working really effectively. So regardless of which one you prioritize first, it really comes back to working with partners that are helping you to cross all the T's, dot all the I's, and create what we call an agility loop. And that agility loop is really about being able to put together a transparent and comprehensive content marketing strategy to decide when and where content should be originated or when it should be adapted or versioned from existing content. And then how do you then measure the performance analytics of content and make sure that the results of those analytics come all the way back to the top of the funnel of reinforming the forward-looking content marketing strategy. And it's often that first piece of the puzzle of actually having a written strategy, and then that last piece of the puzzle is being able to tie analytics back to the forward-looking strategy that marketers struggle with. And it doesn't matter if they're focused globally or locally, it becomes a challenge because of how fragmented the marketing industry has become. And it's very hard for them to control their service providers, the costs, and the ways in which content are being produced today. And that's really been our mission as a business, is how do we infuse scale, transparency, cost, and quality into, this massive engine that is the content production needs of businesses today.
I think that's fascinating. And man, as you're even just describing that, my head is beginning to really start to swim with all of the potential things that could go wrong in a process like that for these large, global brands. But like you said, the need to really have that local, speaking to a specific buyer persona, even, what are some of those threats that you see that really kind of are the most dangerous for brands?
Sure. Well, I think that one of the most common areas and one of the most common threats we see is really when it comes down to budget allocation. When prioritizing at a local marketing level without the support of sort of higher level procurement-based thinking. So those are the individuals that help you decide, how you're going to spend your dollars, which suppliers you're going to use, how to get cost control and consistency. Is you end up with the local marketing teams having anywhere between 5 to 8 different agencies. Each of them are supporting in the very specific silo that they are experts in, but that often means that they have content needs and they are then tasked to produce content for that silo. That means that you have, 5 to 8 companies, all with the best intent of producing exceptional work for you based on what they've been hired to do. But immediately we've lost the visibility or that holistic thinking around content requirements and how that content's going to be produced at scale. So really one of the major places that we try to look for a solution for customers is understanding, who are your partners today? What are the content requirements if they know them? Often they don't have a proactive visibility into that. And then how do we decouple content from each of those individual service providers and centralize it with ourselves or another service provider so that you have someone thinking holistically about your content marketing production needs and not in a platform silo. So that is often one of the major points, is that sort of shift between a fragmented content production mindset to a fully decoupled and optimized one. The second comes down to internal communication. It is so common that one of the first breaks that we see happen is that there's a lack of understanding internally within the brand teams about roles and responsibilities when it comes to who should own what in terms of content marketing, channel execution, marketing activities. So we also work really closely, not just in producing great content for the external communication and content to the end user, whether it's B2B or B2C, but we also really work to help build a cycle of transparency with internal communication about what are the brands doing, what's working really well, what are the key learnings and best practices, and not just how do we share it within that one local team, but if there's things that have worked really well and could offer great value to other local markets across the world where that brand is a priority, how are we sharing those and showing them how to make the best use of their marketing dollars? So it's this like mentality of, creating a village from all the brands as opposed to them all operating in little siloed communities. We want to share best practices. We want to share key learnings. We want to help everyone win together. And that mentality is one that I think through just the amount of M&A happening in the industry right now, the amount of brand consolidation happening, there is a level of chaos for marketers. And I think that they need support from, they need support from the service providers, not just in the traditional sense, but they really need people who have their backs today and are trying to figure out how to make them the best in the world at what they do.
Today's growth story revolves around search engine marketing. Delphix, a big data platform, had hired an agency to manage their Google ads a few years ago, but they weren't seeing the results they wanted to see. Being such a technical B2B solution, they set out to find a team that could take on their challenge. After countless proposals, they found the perfect fit: Directive Consulting, the B2B search marketing agency. In just 1 week after launching Directive's campaigns, Delphix saw their lead volume double and their cost per lead drop by 60%. I have a hunch that Directive can get these kind of results for you too. So head over to directiveconsulting.com and request a totally free custom proposal. That's directiveconsulting.com. All right, let's get back to this interview.
You work with a lot of brands who are in this process. What's a good example you've maybe seen of a brand that's really stepped up their internal communications and, busting through some of those silos?
Sure. I mean, there are a lot of good examples. I think that a favorite of mine and one that actually the Instagram and Facebook team did an independent case study of is the Tropicana team at PepsiCo. They tasked us a couple of years ago with the challenge that, across their social media, the narrative had sort of a negative tone because all of the content being shown was photos of juice. And the idea was, well, juice has sugar, so juice is therefore bad. And that happens in the cycle of ingredient trends and, the latest fad of what's bad: carbs, butter, fat, sugar. It's all cyclical. But,
right.
They really believed that their product was something that should inspire families to get together around the table. So what we propose is actually switching away from product-focused content towards recipe-driven content. So the idea, let's still get the family together around the table, but instead of putting juice on the table in a glass, let's infuse juice into recipes and actually make something with it and make a moment as a family with the product. So we did two things. We created a series of recipe videos that went on YouTube. One of them was actually one of the top 10 most watched ads in Canada on YouTube in 2016.
Wow.
And it was amazing. I mean, it was like video game ad, Geico ad, Tropicana video. So we were really happy. And that was really awesome. But then the next step of that, which was so cool, was that that marketing team got to go to their global sales and marketing conference and got an incredible shout out for this incredibly positive 180 they did in terms of sentiment on social media. And from there, we were able to go off and do some other really cool programs, not just directly with the Trop team, but with the other agencies supporting them. And this is all part of us working as an integrated team, looking out for the brand's best interests. So we did actually their first ever sponsored Instagram story series doing mixology. We actually did cocktails, which was their first time ever incorporating alcohol into their beverages. And, the ad series that we produced is one that, Facebook and Instagram talk about as a key case study for them, because we made these incredibly fun, fruity, tropical cocktails using this new mixed beverage they'd come out with. And it actually led to a 16-point lift in intent to purchase from males. So it was, again, one where we're tying, brand objectives, really great content origination ideas. We're studying the metrics and the analytics, and then we're bringing those analytics back. And so when we did this in, the activity in 2016, and then again in 2017 with this Tropicana cocktail mixers, we ended up actually then going on to support about 6 to 7 of the key global markets, looking at how we could produce content centrally from Toronto, but then actually swap in all the product packaging from the different other 6, 7 markets we were working with, so that they would be able to benefit from that same content production. Because we found something that worked, and we really helped to, scale communication and support the brand team. So it was an exciting one.
Yeah, that's amazing story. And I think that it even speaks to our next point, which is, the importance of scalability. And, you guys were able to do that all from Toronto, but still have a local or regional flair, at least, to that content. How is it that you can strike that balance between global initiatives and local initiatives? And is there a way to know when to focus on either or?
I think that getting your pointer of when to go local and when to go global, you always need to be thinking about how do I create some level of personalization, even if global is the team driving the initiative, because ultimately you want to make sure that you're succeeding at a cultural and locally relevant level within each of the key markets. But I do really believe that part of our key to success has been partially through the centralization of our team. So we have 11 studios in our Toronto office here. We have 2 studios in our New York office, and then we have 2 studios in our London office. So because we have teams across those markets, it does give us a bit of a tap into what's happening, at least in those. But we realized pretty quickly that as we're working on a more and more global scale, the ability for us to tap into subject matter experts at a truly local level was critical. So back in 2016, we actually started to develop what we call our ambassador network. And that is essentially a network of, highly skilled third-party creatives, photographers, videographers, food stylists, recipe developers, even social, digital, and translation and transcreation experts, so that we had this pool and network. So if we were, getting tasked with a job in France or Spain or Latin America, that we could tap into those individuals to either produce the content in a locally relevant location, or at least be able to tap into their subject matter and cultural expertise, which is really important to make sure that what you're creating has authenticity. And now we're very fortunate having, through the acquisition of WLT, they are already doing content and creative production at a global level, and a truly global level, like even far beyond what we were able to do as a business prior to our acquisition. And as a result, they have, a massive network of translation and transcreation experts embedded within their business. And so this is, again, one of the exciting things that we want, is we've used this acquisition as an opportunity to really pour rocket fuel in an already quickly growing organic business and really take our global presence up a notch. And so I think that we're only going to see us continue to take on the global scene from a marketing perspective at a much higher pace now post the acquisition.
I think that's a fascinating, model overall, to use local content creators as an ambassador network. And I'm just sitting here thinking about how powerful that would be to have feet on the ground in different places, ready to speak to different personas. Maybe just, how did you guys start that process, and how did you grow that, truly from a tactical standpoint?
Yeah, it's not an easy one, I have to say. There's quite a few, we hear about them all the time, the content aggregator networks, where you've got this, the sea of very talented creatives sort of agnostically supporting at a mass scale when content briefs come down the funnel. And we've seen those. There was a great Toronto-based company that was doing it really well, that was acquired by Shutterstock 2 summers ago. And so, there were people out there already embracing this methodology. But what we were getting the feedback on is, yes, it's great to have all of those bodies, but and to be able to achieve scale, but how do we ensure quality? And that's always been our pinch point. It's not just about doing it faster and cheaper. We've still got to do it better than everyone else out there. So our ambassador network was actually one we approached incredibly slowly. Even today, our network is only about 100, just over 100, I think around 100, 120 ambassadors, because we actually treat the hiring process of these ambassadors like we were bringing on a full-time THP team member. So we go through a recruitment process. We go through training in our process and our quality control measures when it comes to our systems, technology, our pre-production process, production and post, depending on what part of the business they touch. But it's imperative that for them to be able to bring the same value that any one of our full-time team members would, they have to understand and have clear communication. So it's almost like we're drinking our own Kool-Aid of what we're preaching to the marketers about communication. We actually fundamentally believe that as a business, that we have to operate as a single unit, even if we're not all working together all the time. So we've been building our network now for almost 3 years, but we have seen tremendous success because we've taken the time and diligence to make sure that these individuals really understand what it means to be part of a network of ambassadors committed to quality and scale and cost efficiency for these marketers. And one of the key ways we measured this in terms of success is we look at our reshoot rates as a business. So, we produce upwards of 22,000 pieces of original content a year. And even as we've grown our ambassador network, we've never seen our reshoot rate go over 2%. And that is just crazy from a content production perspective.
Absolutely. That's amazing. So kudos to you and the team on that. That's awesome. There's a lot of different opportunities that emerge from just approaching things in this way. What are some of those that you feel like are some of those low-hanging fruit that people can be taking advantage of when thinking about this global versus local?
I think that the lowest hanging fruit for marketers and the opportunity is to really just put pen to paper and understand, what are my objectives? What are the marketing channels that I'm on? What are my key campaigns or product innovations coming to market this year? And who are the consumers that I care most about touching and influencing this year? And once you've created that map, it becomes much easier to identify where content can be lifted and repurposed versus where original content needs to be created. And I think that by starting with transparency and a clear understanding of what it is you need, it immediately puts you in a more favorable position to be able to look for the right service providers to help bring your vision to life and to better control your marketing expenses when it comes to actually reaching out and looking for people to help fulfill on that work for you.
Love it. Well, Amanda, as marketers here in the audience are listening and they might be feeling some of that stretch between where do they focus efforts, you mentioned budget is something that is a common issue for a lot of teams. What would be your encouragement as you're speaking to them about how to approach this throughout the rest of 2019?
There is one thing we talk about so often. It is, do you know how many incredible assets you already have today? I think that over the last 5 years, there's been such pressure on marketers to produce more and more content. We've actually lost visibility into all of the incredible performing pieces of content we already have. One of the key areas we recommend marketers start is by doing an audit of the existing content they've produced or they have living in a recipe database CRM as an example, or their content management system, and repurpose and adapt that content to be leveraged again. Make the best use of your dollars by using your hardest working assets. And then where you need to, you can pepper in, original content to then help fuel that growth and that need for net new. But I think a lot of marketers, and it's likely also a bit of a symptom of the industry and just the high degree of turnover of people in the marketing industry right now within brands, is we're just not really aware of all of the great tools we actually already have access to.
I think that's a great point. And, Amanda, this has been a great conversation and we certainly appreciate your perspective. The topic today, the challenge of creating content at scale while still maintaining a local and regional relevance, is certainly one that's going to speak well to our audience. So I really appreciate you coming on. If anybody wants to connect with you or THP, what's the best way for them to find you and do that?
Absolutely. Well, probably the easiest way is through our website, thpcreates.com. If you enter any of your questions or comments in there, Brittany Watson, our incredible marketing specialist, will be quick to get back to everyone. And then, of course, our contact information is also available through the website, and people are welcome to get in touch with us with any and all questions.
Amazing. Well, Amanda, thanks again for being on the show. We certainly appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
We totally get it. We publish a ton of content on this podcast, and it can be a lot to keep up with. That's why we've started the B2B Growth Big Three, a no-fluff email that boils down our 3 biggest takeaways from an entire week of episodes. Sign up today at sweetfishmedia.com/big3. That's sweetfishmedia.com/big3.